unemployment, they released unemployment claims today. Moving on to the second news item. And unemployment claims have ticked up a bit. I just wanted to share this slide from the St. Louis Fed. So I love the Fred website. This is such an amazing website. So this serves economic data. So it's fred.stlouisfed.org, and you can get all sorts of different data here. And this is unemployment claims, weekly initial unemployment claims. And you can see, from the 70s, 80s, it was, in the 200,000, 300,000. And, obviously during the coronavirus, things popped up a little bit. So let's zoom in here to this is crazy, right? 2010 to 2020, just a gradual downward decline of initial unemployment claims week over week. And then this huge bump up during the coronavirus. And then it's steadily come down. But if you look at the number this past week, I want to say it was 351,000. And if you look at the end of December here, we were talking 200,000 in weekly unemployment claims. And so we're still quite a bit above the pre-coronavirus numbers. So, and what's a little crazy, this is sort of the upside down world a bit. The number of job openings is just huge. So there's a lot going on here. And so the question is a little bit is, and companies are also having trouble staffing positions. So, what's your perspective on, what's going on with the job market today? And we'll start with that question first. Dimitri.
Yeah, that's a scary chart to kind of look at. Thanks for the reminder. It kind of reminded me how in those days when the market dropped, I think 10% in one day back then, you kind of understand why. We had 5 million new job losses in 1 week. Yeah. That's amazing. But yeah, I'll give you an example just today from my local area here. I went to my mailbox this morning. I live in northern Florida, a little bit south of Jacksonville, and I had a note in my mailbox saying that the city was halting recycling services indefinitely because they couldn't get enough staffing to do that anymore. And they had to reschedule a couple of times, and they just kind of finally gave up, and they don't know when they're going to start that again. And they told us to hold on to our little blue bins just in case, whenever that happens. But, it's an example of what you're talking about. There's, like you said, there's obviously a whole lot of factors here, but kind of the one that sticks out to me is sort of this, I guess you call it changing priorities from the pandemic, just a wholesale, a lot of people making these decisions, voluntary decisions to sort of change or relocate. And a number that jumped out at me, I was playing around on that website there too. I love that. I'll plug that website too. You can spend hours on that Fred's site. But the number 2.7% of workers in July, which is the most recent data we have, quit their job, like voluntarily quit their job, which is kind of really close to a record. And that number has if anything gone up over the last couple of months. And it's, that's sort of kind of a telling story, it looks like. And you look at some of the industries that are sort of elevated in that way. These are voluntary separations, are things like restaurant services and hospitality for sure. Areas that have like a lot, maybe longer hours or maybe physically demanding work, for like my city services example. And then professional services is a big one too. And that's I think I attribute that to being, some of these people that are working in maybe a big metropolitan area and have to sort of commute and don't want to be tied to the office and that commute. So a lot of people have quit those jobs and are just not willing to go back to that. They're being pickier, I guess, in going back into these industries. So that's, people got a taste for sort of remote work and avoiding long commutes and in some cases moved out of city areas. So, I guess that's one reason why the job market looks so weird right now.
Yeah, Dimitri, and not only, I've seen some surveys that said not only have there been a bunch of people that have quit, if you ask the people who are employed today, there's some 30 or 40%, there's some large percentage of them who would leave, if say the company forced them to go back in the office 5 days a week, or they found a better job that was allow them more flexibility. So certainly the coronavirus has sort of made us all sort of, I guess, step back a little bit and evaluate, oh, is this job really what I want to do day to day, right? So Toby, what's your perspective on this whole thing?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here, right? I mean, one thing Dimitri said about that 2.7% people who quit their jobs, I think was the number there. That plays into this a little bit, right? I mean, even in environments where we have what we call full employment, there's still some unemployed people for precisely that reason, right? People lose their job or they quit their job and they're between jobs, but they're going to get another one, right? So there's always that a little bit of flexibility in this system. There's always going to be some number of unemployed people in transition from one place to another, and you'll never get that to zero. And it's not healthy, right? Economists will tell you if unemployment gets to be too low, that's actually bad for the economy. And one thing we're seeing here is we've all heard about the labor shortage. I think most people are pretty convinced that if they want to get a job, they can do that, or people who are currently employed. And so if someone says, I don't want this job, they'll just quit, right? We're not in a situation where you line up another job first necessarily, right? You just say, well, I'm out, I'm gonna go look for another job. And so that's gonna kind of increase that type of unemployment, that between job searching. And you're gonna see that potentially in the tick up we saw this time, right? It doesn't necessarily mean anything is going badly. It just means we're in a different scenario. I think a lot of what's happening too, this kind of follows on to Dimitri's point about changing priorities. People are just leaving the labor force. You think about what happened in the pandemic. Schools closed, forcing some parents to quit their jobs. Some people lost their jobs in the pandemic and were forced to stay home. And I think a lot of these people probably could go back now if they wanted to, but they're not doing that. And some of that is by choice, definitely. They're reevaluating their priorities. People have talked about the unemployment payments, the additional unemployment payments being a factor. That might be, but I think a lot of it is also just reevaluating priorities and people deciding, I just don't need to work right now. And I think that's especially true when you think about formerly dual income households with young children. One person could say, you know what, we tried this because I lost my job, I was forced to stay home, or I had to stay home because the kids weren't in school. And it's just better for our family if we have someone home. So let's just keep doing that. There's no reason for both of us to work. Or maybe they're working part-time from home, but that's not counted. You're not seeing that, right? You're still seeing a job go unfilled because they're not taking that. Oh, I got a part-time gig and that's fine. So I think there's a lot of that, right? I think another factor you want to think about is there are just different kinds of jobs and more jobs out there perhaps now. We've seen surging stock prices in companies this past year, right? It's because business is booming. They're hiring people. Like we talk about all these companies that we've done deep dives on, Brian. Oh, we're hiring X number of people. We're trying to, at least I guess is the implication there. But not all these companies existed a decade ago. Not all these industries even existed. And it takes a while to shake out in terms of retraining people, in terms of people being aware of what's out there. We hear owners sometimes complaining of small businesses like, I can't hire people. People don't want to work. Well, maybe they don't want to work for you at what you're trying to pay, right? But drive around any random town in this country and you'll see work's getting done somewhere. Like people are out there. They're driving their cars places. They're doing things. So there's so many factors. I don't think you picked one, but it's definitely a shift. It's definitely a transition we're seeing right now.